Discretion, used 9 times in 9 verses of the Bible. The act of sound and right judgment before God and men.
When is a serious sedition required? Not rebellion, a serious sedition against authority. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Rod Hembry, and this is the weekend edition of the Quick Study television program. Now today we are going to explore 1 Kings chapter 18 through 20, and we are looking at a serious sedition. The politics of the day were wrapped up into the worship of the Baal religion, and there was a lot of murder going on. There was a lot of children's sacrifice going on, and we'll find out what Elijah decides to do, the great prophet of God, and we talk about serious sedition in just a moment. Corey is also here with Bible archaeology. Corey?
We are going to be taking a look at some of the wars and battles that took place between Israel and Judah and the nation of Aram, or Syria, whose capital city was Damascus. We're also going to be taking a look at some signet seals of some very famous people in the Kings.
So as we go through the Bible in one year, we run into all of these real historical figures, and we can learn from the Bible teaching what they mean. Ryan is here with Mysteries of the Universe. Ryan, what's coming up later?
Well, we're continuing our interview with marine biologist Dr. Robert Carter. Now, since Robert has also studied genetics extensively, I'm going to ask him some genetics-related questions.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Robert Carter coming up. What a great guy, a brilliant mind. It is an excellent program. Stay with us for the next 28 minutes and 30 seconds, and I promise you that we are going to explore some very good wisdom.
Our reading today covers the time period of King Ahab and Queen Jezebel reigning in northern Israel from the capital city of Samaria. Right now, what you and I are going to do is take a look at a very interesting signet seal that may have belonged to the queen. Much attention in the Bible is given to a wicked woman that lived in the 9th century BC. The Bible tells us she was a Phoenician princess. 1st century historian Josephus tells us her father was a priest of Baal turned Phoenician king who secured his daughter's marriage to Ahab, king of Israel. In the biblical account, Queen Jezebel's ruthless dedication to Baal spills violence and blood across the pages of history. Could it be possible that today we have preserved one of this woman's claims to power? In the 1960s, this personal seal in question was bought off the antiquities market, so its place of discovery is unknown. But it is clear that the seal belonged to an important, even royal person. It is larger than most personal seals, just over an inch long, made of opal, and is filled with Egyptian-style images popular in Phoenicia during the days of Jezebel. There are the winged sphinx, sun, 2 cobras, and a falcon, all royal symbols. The sphinx itself has a female face and a crown of the goddess Hathor. At the bottom of the seal, there is a lotus symbol that is linked with women in the ancient world. Together, all of these images point to female royalty. Research on this seal must be credited to Polish researcher Marho Korpel, who has popularly published her findings in the Journal of Semetics and in Biblical Archaeology Review. She not only provides analysis of the imagery of the seal, but also attempts to clear up the name incised on its surface. The name on the seal is Jezebel, but it has been criticized because it's spelled slightly differently than the biblical version. It's missing the first letter, Aleph, and due to its nature as a personal seal, the name should also have a lamed, meaning to or belonging to. Corpel has proposed that the seal did have these 2 letters. She points to a missing chunk of opal in the seal, a perfect place and size to contain the inscription. In short, if she's correct, this seal of a royal woman with Phoenician ties said belonging to Jezebel.
It's time to explore the wise guys of the Bible. They are all around us. From 1 Kings 18 to 20, we're going to focus on one. It is one thing to rebel against spiritual laws of Christ. It is quite another to build a bulwark against those righteous laws and violently strike it. Now, 1 Kings 17 introduces us to a very wise guy. He is a prophet known as Elijah. His entire ministry to come against the specialized arts of Baalism was renowned. Now, this violent religion was instituted by Jezebel, the wife of northern Israel's 7th king. These were evil times. The slaughterous murder of God's prophets by Queen Jezebel awards the infamous and notorious title as the Queen of Evil in Israel. But God's man Elijah is stronger and will never be touched by her.
And it came to pass after many days that the word of the Lord came to Elijah in the 3rd year, saying, Go, present yourself to Ahab, and I will send rain on the earth. So Elijah went to present himself to Ahab, and there was a severe famine in Samaria. And Ahab had called to Obadiah, who was in charge of his house. Now Obadiah feared the Lord greatly, for so it was, while Jezebel massacred the prophets of the Lord, that Obadiah had taken 100 prophets and hidden them, 50 to a cave, and had fed them with bread and water. And Ahab had said to Obadiah, Go into the land, to all the springs of water and to all the brooks. Perhaps we may find grass to keep the horses and mules alive, so that we will not have to kill any livestock. So they divided the land between them to explore it. Ahab went one way by himself, and Obadiah went another way by himself. Now as Obadiah was on his way, suddenly Elijah met him, and he recognized him and fell on his face and said, Is that you, my lord Elijah? And he answered him, It is I. Go, tell your master, Elijah is here. So he said, How have I sinned that you are delivering your servant into the hand of Ahab to kill me? As the Lord your God lives, there is no nation nor kingdom where my master has not sent someone to hunt for you. And when they said, He is not here, he took an oath from the kingdom or nation that they could not find you. And now you say, Go tell your master, Elijah is here? It shall come to pass as soon as I am gone from you, that the Spirit of the Lord will carry you to a place I do not know. So when I go and tell Ahab, and he cannot find you, he will kill me. But I, your servant, have feared the Lord from my youth. Was it not reported to my Lord what I did when Jezebel killed the prophets of the Lord? How I hid 100 men of the Lord's prophets, 50 to a cave, and fed them with bread and water? And now you say, Go tell your master Elijah is here. He will kill me. Then Elijah said, As the Lord of hosts lives, before whom I stand, I will surely present myself to him today. 1 Kings chapter 18, verses 1 through 15.
It is the 9th century BC, and there is serious wickedness in the north. Now, Israel is split in two. There is, of course, the two tribes of Judah and Benjamin to the south, who are inhabiting the area of Judah, or that is to say, Jerusalem. And then there are the 10 tribes to the north in Samaria. They, of course, were founded by Jeroboam I. Now, Ahab is the ruler years later in Samaria, and Jezebel is his evil, wicked wife. She is the princess of a king who worships Baal, the pagan god that actually does human baby sacrifices as a result of the temple prostitutes giving birth. This infection is in the land to the north called Samaria. Today, we learn and are introduced to a man who brings about a serious sedition against the evil empire of Israel to the north. His name is Elijah, and he is an amazing man. So 1 Kings chapter 18, tell us the story. We've already read part of it, but let's look at the rest of it so that we can review it again and learn 3 things about serious sedition. Not rebellion, but sedition. 1 Kings 18, 1-4, and it came to pass after many days that the word of the Lord came to Elijah the prophet in the 3rd year, saying, Go present yourself to Ahab, and I will send rain upon the earth. And so Elijah went to present himself to Ahab, and there was a severe famine in Samaria. And Ahab called Obadiah, who was in charge of his house. Now Obadiah feared the Lord greatly, for so it was that when Jezebel slaughtered, murdered, and massacred the prophets of the Lord, that Obadiah had taken 100 prophets and hidden them, 50 to a cave, and fed them with bread and water. Notice here that this Obadiah is in rebellion, technically. He is rebelling against the government at the time. Why? Because there is a higher order. It is not the spirit of rebellion. It is the spirit of preserving the dignity of the life of people who are being slaughtered for their faith. So our first study-wise point when talking about serious sedition is this. Serious sedition is required of Bible believers when evil commands them to yield their moral faith to immoral foolishness. Now, beloved, before we go any further, I want to mention a great proverb which says, Do not answer a fool according to his folly, lest you be like him. You see, it is wrong to shoot doctors at abortion clinics. That is a sin, and that's wrong. We do not fight fire with fire. We do not fight sin with sin. It is not correct, and it is against, of course, the command, number 6, to murder. And so it's important for us to recognize the difference. With that in mind, let's move on. 1 Kings 18, verses 5 and 6. And Ahab had said to Obadiah, Go into the land and all of the springs of the water, and to all of the brooks, perhaps we may find grass to keep our horses and our mules alive. There was a famine. God had brought a famine in the land, so that we will not have to kill any of our livestock. Verse 6. So they divided the land between them to explore. Ahab went one way himself, and Obadiah went the other way by himself. Now, God splits them up. This is interesting. Now, this brings us to our second point. Serious sedition is not natural rebellion from the sin nature, but God carves and directs paths of righteousness in an evil land. What I want to say here is that God had set up Obadiah to split away from Ahab, so that Obadiah in just a moment is going to run into Elijah. God has Obadiah, the good man who is preserving life. He is directing his paths. Ahab says, You go your way, I'll go mine. We'll be looking for water. God knows all about this. And so he's setting Elijah right in the midst of Obadiah's path because Obadiah was faithful. He is giving him a righteous path in an evil land. God will do the same for us, beloved, today, as we look at the world and all of the culture of death around us and so on. So we move then, of course, to chapter 18, verses 17 to 15. Now Obadiah was on his way, and suddenly Elijah met him and recognized him and fell on his face and said, Is that you, my Lord Elijah? Apparently Elijah was pretty famous among the prophets. And he answered him, It is, "It is I. Go tell your master, Elijah's here." Well, Obadiah knows what that means. So he said, "How have I sinned that you are delivering your servant into the hand of Ahab to kill me? As the Lord your God lives, there is no nation or kingdom where my master has not sent someone to hunt for you." And when they said, "He is not there," he took an oath from the kingdom of that nation or that nation that they could not find you. And so now you say, "Go tell your master, Elijah is here." And it shall come to pass, as soon as I am going from you, that the Spirit of the Lord will carry you away to some place I don't know. And so when I go to tell Ahab, and he cannot find you, well, the king's going to kill me, Elijah. But I, your servant, have feared the Lord from my youth. Was it not reported to the Lord what I did when Jezebel killed the prophets of the Lord? And how I hid 100 men of the Lord's prophets, 50 to a cave, and fed them with the bread of water? And now you say to me, "Go tell your master, Elijah is here. He'll kill me, Elijah." And then Elijah said, "As the Lord of hosts lives before whom I stand, I will surely present myself to him today." Beloved, our last point is this: serious sedition will require extreme faith. Complaining will never achieve God's will, but faith will.
In 1 Kings chapter 20, we see a run-in with the Arameans and northern Israel. Now, right now, what you and I are going to do is we're going to track this animosity, this anger issue, these contentions that the Arameans had with Israel. During the reigns of King David and his son Solomon, one major player of political sway in the ancient world, the Arameans, an allied force of city-states, were at relative peace with Israel, accomplished through military victories and marriage alliances. The Arameans had made enemies of the growing kingdom of Assyria, but with Aram allied with Israel, Assyria was not strong enough to retaliate. However, when Israel split into two kingdoms, the political shift and resulting power takeovers weakened Israel's international force. Assyria had a chance to grow, and Aram had a chance to reinforce its independence. By the time Israel had a strong military king on the throne, the international scene had changed. King Ahab's reign in Israel is marked in the Bible not only by great religious apostasy, but also as a time of much military action. Ahab had managed to battle his way into a peace treaty with Aram, and also married Jezebel to gain an alliance with Phoenicia. Strengthened Assyria did attack under Shalmaneser III, but Israel's evil alliances held enough to create what was more or less a draw at the Battle of Karkar. But Israel's treaties did not last forever. Perhaps feeling victorious, Ahab broke his peace treaty with Aram, bringing in a new ally, the smaller kingdom of Judah under King Jehoshaphat. This battle did not go well. Israel had lost an ally and replaced it at best with a quiet enemy that could and would strike back when opportunities arose.
The Bible is full of people who gained insight and instruction from God through dreams and vision. Does it still happen today? A pagan king named Abimelech was warned in a dream not to touch Abraham's wife. Nebuchadnezzar, the pagan Babylonian king, was given a vision of God's future for planet Earth. Join Rod, Janice, and Corey in a special 1-hour DVD on biblical dreams and visions. We also ask the question, does it still happen today? This special Bible Investigators DVD training video also makes a great topic for small group Bible studies. For your DVD copy of Dreams and Visions on Bible Investigators, send $25 or more to P.O. Box 150, Murrysville, Pennsylvania 15680-150. In Canada, P.O. Box 456, Orangeville, Ontario L9W5G2. You can also order online at BibleDiscoveryTV.com. You're watching the weekend edition of the Quick Study television program taking you through the Bible in 1 year. Thank you for joining us now. Mysteries of the Universe with Rye the Science Guy.
Well, last weekend I asked Dr. Carter about genetic mutations in the human genome, and he gave us an extremely conservative estimate of at least 60 mutations for every child that's born. This is disturbingly high. So now, in continuation of this question, I asked him how evolutionists respond to this rather recently discovered reality. I also asked him the simple question, is man evolving?
You know, it's really funny to read the papers where evolutionists are trying to answer how we can survive over long periods of time with a high mutation rate. There's one paper called The Accumulation of Deleterious Mutations, Why Have We Not Died 100 Times Over? There was another paper recently by Mike Lynch where he said mutation rate's incredibly high. I expected him to say that the eukaryotic genome is doomed and all eukaryotes will go extinct, and it was a mistake to even become that complicated in the beginning. The only thing in the future will be bacteria. He didn't say that, but the reason I expect him to say that is because he does not have an answer, and he's honestly admitting it. I don't have an answer, he's saying, of how we can survive over long periods of time, because we're too complex and mutation rate is too high. And those two things don't mix in evolutionary theory. That's actually a recipe for disaster. I don't believe man is evolving. I think we're devolving. There's several reasons for that. If you look in the Bible, people used to live a lot longer than they do today. I believe people were probably stronger and smarter and more fit than we are today. Now, yes, human lifespans are increasing, we're told. That's mainly due to diet and medicine. If we look at the fossil record, all you have to do is look at a paleontologist and look at another paleontologist and look at another paleontologist. They're all disputing with one another what the course of human history has been. So there's not much confidence in the fossil record. In fact, I don't have any confidence in the fossil record, but even if you're an evolutionist, you're looking at what the paleontologists are saying, there's no confidence in it. So the lack of data in fossils doesn't support human evolution. The recent accumulation of lots of mutations does not support human evolution. The rise in recent years of all sorts of genetic diseases, I think genetic diseases are increasing over time, not decreasing. I don't think natural selection is removing them. I think they're building up in the population. I don't see any room actually for human evolution to occur over the long term.
Now, Dr. Carter will be back next week to talk to us more, but if you want to read more about genetics and mutations, I suggest reading this book called Genetic Entropy and the Mystery of the Genome by Dr. John Sanford. If you'd like a copy, you'll have to go to creation.com.
Now, this guy is an amazing person. Corey, we met him at the Creation Conference we attended and covered and broadcast live on the internet several years ago. You liked Dr. Sanford, didn't you?
Yes, and I have actually read his book, Genetic Entropy, and enjoyed it very much. It's a very interesting read.
Now, it's not the kind of book, that you're going to see in the Christian bookstore. Because most people are reading Max Lucado and Charles Stanley and all the rest of it. I mean, who picks up a book called Genetic Entropy? I can imagine the author or the publisher. Your book is called what? Genetic Entropy? But this book is amazing, and I want to encourage you to check it out. You can also find it on creation.com. So it's a great work and very, very interesting. Corey, briefly tell us quickly about your Bible Discovery Seminary archaeology class.
Well, in our first class on the Bible Discovery Seminary, it's an introduction to biblical history and archaeology. So by the time you're finished, you'll have a better understanding, a better grasp of the history that the Bible covers, and you'll also have been introduced to some really exciting foundational archaeological discoveries that help verify how accurate the Bible's history actually is.
Very good. And Ryan is there too with creation science. And I want to mention to you before we continue on that we also have a way. You're watching the weekend edition of Quick Study, which takes you through the Bible in 1 year. And there's a way you can receive the weekly programs, that is the programs during the week. If you write to us and support us with a gift of $15 or more, and you say you want this key, it is a Quick Study key. This is an 8 gig media drive with all the month's program on it. So we want to encourage, if you want to stay kept up with us as we go through the Bible in 1 year, we'll send it to you with your guide automatically every single month if you register. To find out more, pay attention to the address. But keep in mind, this is a way you can stay in touch with us. Now here's Call to Prayer. Serious sedition is not from the naturally rebellious nature of a man and his challenges to authority. But when authority is evil and commands that God's people become evil, God moves his people into what I call serious sedition. God's word is at work in us when we seriously consider our evil times and how we are to act in them. Our desire is not to acquiesce to evil, but to rescue those who are trapped in it. Serious sedition never looks like raging protest of anger, but looks like gentle living in righteousness and not becoming that which is around us. With that in mind, we pray, Lord, help me not to become angry at the evil around me, but to gently resist doing evil while I'm winning souls. You're watching the weekend edition of Quick Study Television. Before we leave, we continue our commitment to go through the book of Proverbs as well as the Bible. Now, today our reading is Proverbs 13, verses 7 and 9, where it says, "There is one who makes himself rich, but he has nothing. And there is one who makes himself poor, but boy, he has everything." Lifestyles of the rich and famous, but the poor in spirit. To be bankrupt in your mind, not knowing your purpose. I know lots of people who have a lot of money and have no purpose, and they are not happy. Beloved, money will not make you happy. Yet we spend all of our lives chasing it. May I encourage you today that there is a purpose that goes beyond whatever this world offers. It goes beyond money. It goes beyond all of this. And that purpose, the Bible says, comes in knowing Jesus Christ, why you were created, why he gave you the talents and the abilities that he gave you, and not to spend on yourself or be used by others. Come to Jesus and discover your purpose. I invite you today. Say, Lord, I need you today. Help me in my life. Thanks again for joining us today on the weekend edition of Quick Study Television. Remember, our weekday versions are also available at BibleDiscoveryTV.com. We have archives there the whole year. Check it out, BibleDiscoveryTV.com for Quick Study weekdays.